In the aftermath of a rather brilliant episode, Penguin's Umbrella, Jim Gordon is still reeling from having failed to arrest Falcone and his associates, and he tries to single-handedly arrest Roman Sionis, Gotham's very own Black Mask. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne begins school and Barbara suffers from her ordeal last episode and begins drinking again. The main theme of this episode is the idea of fighting and the violence it brings out in people. It's also about struggle and the battle within oneself. Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon both deal with letting their violent tendencies out into the open. But it's how they deal and control their violence which separates them from the rest of Gotham. Bruce Wayne starts school this episode, and it's implied in the comics that Bruce Wayne used to struggle at school quite a lot, and it's really interesting that it's touched upon in this episode. This is a younger Bruce Wayne, so of course he must have gone to school at some point. And I like the fact that it's being touched upon in this episode. Based on the almost autistic level of affection that Bruce shows to other people, it's good to see Bruce Wayne interact amongst other kids. We can also see him dealing with the ladies, and it's a nice nod to the playboy Bruce Wayne that Bruce Wayne will become in the future. Bruce Wayne is bullied in this episode by Tommy Elliot, aka Hush, which adds an interesting layer to an already intriguing version of Bruce Wayne. Originally, Tommy Elliot was a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, and it's really interesting to see these two go at it so early in their respective developments. It's also interesting about how a boy like Bruce Wayne deals with the level of trauma that he dealt with, and how he interacts with other people. Bruce Wayne is allowed in this episode to kind of go off the rails and use the anger that he's been building inside him. I do question, though, the fact that Alfred is deciding to teach Bruce how to fight, deciding to let Bruce lash out. I think it will get to a stage where Alfred no longer can control the monster that Bruce has inside him. But I do like the fact that Bruce is starting to act on his feelings a bit more, and it just makes him into less of an autistic type character. I also like the fact that Bruce is already starting to display some kind of martial Zen monk type state of mind when he thinks about this kind of stuff. Bruce at the core is a good person, and it's good to see his development grow as a character. We also have Jim Gordon also dealing with some stuff. Jim Gordon is dealing with the fact that he was kind of betrayed in the last episode. Gordon is attempting to do all of the police work on his own, and the corruption of the city and the corruption of the police force that he works for we can see it starting to weigh heavily on Gordon. I thought the interaction between Gordon and Roman Sionis was interesting, particularly about the ideas of masks and Gordon's and we learn that Gordon is ultimately a soldier at heart, and it's clear that his military training is egging him to save his city, by any means necessary. This episode makes it clear that he can't do it alone, hence why he needs a character like Batman to support him. Gordon, like Bruce Wayne, is a good man. He has violence in him, yes, but he also has a moral code which, again, separates him from the rest of Gotham City. Whilst on the other hand, from Bruce Wayne in Gotham, we have Roman Sionis, who breeds violence in the form of sports. Sionis doesn't have this moral code, and allows his inner violence free without constraint or boundaries. And it's very interesting that Sionis believes that masks hide a person, allowing them to free themselves from society. But that's parallel to what Batman uses his mask for, because Batman uses his mask to save his city. Other aspects of the show are Barbara, who begins drinking again. Barbara is becoming a problem for this show. For example, Barbara completely ruined episode 7. And Barbara is easily becoming the worst character of the show. Her behaviour is erratic and nonsensical, and she leaves again in this episode. I feel at this stage Barbara is no longer a compelling character, and it should just be written completely out of the show, especially when other strong female leads, who are a lot better and more interesting, i.e. Selina Kyle, deserve to be there. And I feel like Barbara Gordon, she hasn't made a big enough impact to make me feel very impressed with her character. Continuing development for both Riddler and the Penguin, and they're becoming closer to their comic book roots. I also like the rivalry between Penguin and Fish, and it's sort of similar to Maroni and Falcone, which is interesting, because everyone seems to have a parallel in this show, which is very interesting. This episode was good and had many interesting elements. However, I preferred episode 7 a lot more than I did this episode.